Hello everyone, this is Anthony Richardson. I'm your network analyst here at the Cedarville Independent School District. Thank you for taking the opportunity just to view this short tutorial on troubleshooting Canon printers. The document that you see here is a document that will be made available to you on the G drive, and so you'll be able to access this at any time. I'm going to reference this. You won't see it as I'm recording. I'm going to move it out of the way. But this is going to be a document that you should reference as well as you're troubleshooting network printers, specifically on checking the network settings on the printer, also from setting up scan to email, and instructions for manual IP addresses, just to kind of make sure that certain things are in place before moving to the next steps in the troubleshooting phase. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and we're going to bring up the window to a couple of Canon printers. I want to show you really quickly that the interface is a little different as you're dealing with the Imagerunner 2525s. It's a little different than if you're dealing with the advanced image runners like the 4035 and some of the higher end models. As you can see, the login screens are a little different as I toggle between the two of them. So I want you to make note of that because when you're on this particular UI or user interface for the 2525, you need to make sure you always select the System Manager mode, because this is the mode that gives you the administrative functions of that machine. And so in order to check the network settings on this machine, so let's say a caller calls in and says, you know, they can't print to the machine, or the machine's offline or something of that nature, we can always go in here and check the network settings on the machine by entering the System Manager ID and password. And so for the administrator account, default on all Canon machines, it's going to be 7654321, and the password is the same, so 7654321. You need to make sure you have the radio button selected for System Manager mode if you're in this particular UI for the Canon printers, and click OK. Once you're inside of the interface for the 2525s, this again is a little different than the other advanced image runners, but you would click on additional functions, and this is for checking the network settings. So you'll just click on settings at that point, and up under network settings you're going to want to look for the TCP/IP settings. Okay, if it's used DHCP is on, this means the printer is getting an IP address automatically. If it's unchecked, then it's getting an address manually, and you can see the manual settings here. So you need to make sure that these settings are correct, and there's going to be another video that you can reference that will show you how to troubleshoot these IP addresses to make sure that they're in the correct range, something that address mask is correct and the gateway is correct, because if these settings are off, you'll also disable printing functions as well in terms of from a remote perspective or network perspective. You can also make sure the DNS addresses are set. These are the same DNS settings for every machine that's using DNS across the district. These settings are standard, 61 and .62. The host name is typically the host name. What I would like to see is that it matches the actual name of the actual printer that the person is printing to. So for instance, if I bring up the print server, you'll see the names of the printers are generally the campus code, the room number, and then the model of the printer. And so on the actual printer, you want this host name to match that same name that the printers are printing from. This makes a difference when you are actually pinging an address. So if you do ping-a and then put in the address for that machine, 10.106.3.23, the -a is going to resolve it to its DNS name, or it should, and in this case it didn't. But typically what would happen is you would see a actual name for that particular machine, and that name will match this name. The reason why you want this name to show up or to be the same as the name for the printer that they're printing to is so when you do come and ping that address, you're making sure that you're actually reaching that printer that you're desiring to reach, and not some other device. So this is a note. It didn't work out for this particular printer. It didn't show its host name, but on other ones it would do that. Or periodically from time to time they won't. So the other thing you want to also check is from the Imagerunner side, we're going to do the same thing to kind of check the network settings over on that particular printer. So 7654321. Remember, the UI is a little different. 7654321. Click login. And it'll take sometimes a little moment for those to log in. Once you get here, you see the user interface is totally different. You're going to click on settings and registration under this UI, which will then take you to the settings page. All your menu options are typically over to the left. You're going to want to, excuse me for that, you're going to want to go to network settings, IP address settings, IPv4, and again check these settings here, and there's those same settings there. You want, all our printers are manually set, so you want to be sure that the use DHCP is not checked. But when you do that, you want to make sure you also have a manual address already in there. So if it's not, and this is a brand new printer that you're setting up or that needs to be set up, DHCP will be selected, and you're going to need to leave that selected until that's actually changed to a network, an actual manual IP address. Okay, so for scan to email function, it's the same thing in terms of logging in. You want to be sure that you're under the administrator profile if you're using the if you're under this particular UI. If you click additional functions, go to send functions and authentication settings. We do not authenticate for our SMTP relay service, so there's no need to set authentication settings in there. But what you want to do on this particular machine is once you click on, I clicked through too fast without actually explaining. Okay, so again, I had to pause here for a brief moment. Sorry about that. But in terms of the SMTP server settings, this is the relay address that all the printers need to have in order for. So this is basically the address to our Exchange server in order for this printer to send messages to recipients that are in the address book on this machine, or whoever they type in manually to send an address or send an email to, or a scanned document. So 10.10.3.2 is going to need to be the address that they set up there. And so what you want to be sure of is that address is set correctly there. Email address and all these other settings are not even needed because there's no authentication needed. None of this other stuff is needed. You just make sure that this particular address is in there. Click OK. In order for these settings to take place on these particular machines, you're going to have to power the cycle of the machine, and not using the power button on the top. You're going to have to use the main power button that's on the side. Turn the machine completely off and then turn it back on. And then once you do that, then the settings that you just made will actually go into play. On the other UI, to get to that same area for scan to email functionality, I'm going to go back to the portal so you can kind of see this from the main screen of the machine. If you click Settings and Registration, again, the menu will come up on the left side. It kind of gives you some more options. You're going to not click Network Settings. You're going to click Send. It's up under Function Settings. You're going to click Send. You're going to also then go to Network Settings, Email, and IFAC Settings. And you're going to need to make sure that 10.10.3.2 address is in there. Some of these machines have an actual email address. Basically, this is the email address that the machine is sending from. It does not have to be there per se, but that is the in some of the machines. Excuse me. In some of the machines, you will see that there. So 10.10.3.2, make sure that's set there. Again, click OK. Once you do that, then that particular setting is saved in that machine. Don't be inclined to click this Restart Device thinking that will actually make the modifications and settings changes. Again, you're going to have to turn the machine completely off and then turn it back on in order for those settings to be taken on these machines. So that's that. We already talked about manual IP addresses. If you do have a machine that does have a DHCP address, you need to have it manually set. And be sure to get with someone in the Network Services Department so that they can get that set for you and get you a manual IP address on those. And then you can go forward with being sure the scan to email function is set up. and those functions of that nature are there. If there's anything else over and beyond that, and we need to engage Datamax, whoever our provider is for our printers, be sure to engage them and log an appropriate trouble ticket with them so that that issue can be documented and taken care of. Okay, so if you have any questions, be sure to get with me or a member of the team, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you so much for viewing the film.